Hello, I'm Professor Tom Wolf. This is the first in a series of videos that build a CRUD database application, a teacher gradebook. For some reason, I lost the very first video in the sequence. I think what happened was I tried to record it in class on the lab station and it failed. So I'm re-recording this very first one. It builds the menu for our system. And I'll do things a little differently today because I want to make sure that it works with the existing videos. So I'll be copying some code, which normally I would just write. So basically, we're going to talk about what a CRUD database is. We'll talk about Agile programming development, and we'll talk about what our teacher gradebook app will do. So CRUD is an acronym that describes the basic operations that a database provides to its users. So it allows us to create records, read records, update records, and delete records. And if you're familiar with databases, reading records really means to query them to get a set of the records from the database. And then, of course, we can also use a kind of query that deletes records as well. So you can do a CRUD database with a fully automated and elaborate relational table system, but it's also possible to create small and quite usable databases, which are called flat file databases. So a flat file is just another name for a text file, as opposed to a relational system where you have files that are linked with key values. So we're going to go ahead and use this technique to create a CRUD flat file database for a gradebook application. And this application will allow the teacher to maintain the records for the grades in her classes. Each class will be in a separate text file and will provide all these basic CRUD operations. And we'll talk about that in detail in a second. The file format for the gradebook app will be a simple text file. The first line will consist of the title of the class, then a comma, and then a series of column headings, each separated by a comma. And the column headings describe what the grade is. So quiz 1, assignment 5, test number 6, that sort of thing. All the other lines in the file have student data. They start with the name of the student, followed by a comma, and then they have a series of comma delimited grades. And so all these lines will work together. So for instance, the first column heading will match the first grade. The second column heading will match the second grade. It turns out that our flat file database is actually going to have CSV files. And so one of the nice side effects of this is that the gradebook could be opened in Excel just as easily as using our Java application. And it's always smart to do stuff like that. Our users have a variety of tools. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. And often they'll want to do more elaborate things with the data. And so being friendly to our users by using a common file format that they can, sort of hack to their usage is a good idea. The grades are going to be from 0 to 100, so we kind of normalize them to keep things simple. I wanted to talk a little bit about Agile program development. The idea here is instead of trying to write a boatload of code, we write a small amount of code to a point where we can test it, and then we test, and then we keep refining the code. And so this CRUD application is really a good place to see this because we can implement the individual items in the menu list and test them as we go. So it's always smart to just write a little bit of code and run it. If you sit down and try to program an entire application, you write hours and hours of code without testing, you know you're going to have bugs and problems, and it's going to be a lot easier to find them if you do that as you go instead of in one fell swoop. So this is a very loose definition of Agile development, and but it is the significantly common paradigm now in how software is developed in the industry. Okay? All right, let's go ahead and get into NetBeans, and we'll see what we can do here. So I have NetBeans open. This is my original Gradebook app. It's actually completed. And I've created a new application so I could take you through these first parts. So we have a Gradebook app is the project name, and then the one that I'm using today is Gradebook App 01, but yours should be named Gradebook App, and the main file should be Gradebook Java. So I've recreated the file here, and there's nothing here, and I'm going to build the first part of this with you. Now, as I mentioned, to save time, I'm going to go ahead and copy the code and sort of explain it rather than write it all from the beginning. I will write some of it with you. So let's start by going ahead and copying some material here. Looks like I copied a little too much there. So I'll go ahead and fix that, and then I'll show you what we're doing here. So these are some symbolic constants and some variables that we're going to use. So first off, let's come down here and look at these constants. So we have add grades, create, display, delete the grade, delete the student, and quit. So these are the menu options. And so I've gone ahead and created these. And I'm going to go ahead, and the very first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to implement the menu. But not all the functionality will be there. So I'll get the menu working from the very beginning. So if we look here, I'm going to go ahead and close this so we have full screen. We're going to use a do-while loop for the menu. And basically it will just infinitely loop until the user chooses to quit. So we have a finished variable that controls that. And of course that's false to start with. We're going to use the console to get data from the user. And then we have our menu, which we're going to build as a string so we can display it. And then if you look down here, these symbolic constants that I'm using for the menu options run from 1 to 6. So I have a low and a high, which I'm going to use. And one of the things I'm going to use in the program is our previous method that we wrote called getRangedInt, which will allow me to tell the user to give me a menu choice between 1 and 6, and then it'll also display the menu, and that's why I'm setting the menu up here as a string. Okay? All right, let's go ahead and copy that method in now while I'm thinking about it. So I actually have that over here, and the completed one, and you should have this too, so you can copy this too. We built this in class. So I'm going to open the second gradebook here, and you can see all the completed code. And again, if you go through the videos I've already recorded, it will show you how to do all this stuff. But let's go ahead and where is our getRangedInt here? So, whoops, I should just use the navigator for that. Here we go. So look over here. getRangedInt, there it is. And now I'm just going to go ahead and copy it from this completed version of the project into the one we're working on today. All right, so we'll put this over here. This needs to go inside the class, but outside of the main. You should already know that. We'll go ahead and paste that in. I don't know if I'm going to need any of the other methods that we developed yet, so we'll see. Okay. All right. So at this point in the main, all I have is the beginnings of the menu. And I wanted to copy that much because I wanted to try to make it the same as what we're going to have in the rest of the program. So let's take a quick look at this. So we have a string called menu. We start out with 3 new lines to put some space in. Then we have a fancy dividing bar made of plus signs. Then we continue to add lines. And so I'm going to build the whole menu this way just because visually it's easier to see in the source code what it will look like. Notice this, string format. Again, we have a new line. We have this time 3 pluses, then a tab, a space, a dash, a space, and then look at this, percentage negative 35s. So this is the string format that says show s, a string, in a 35 character field, and I believe the negative sign forces it to be left aligned. and normally it would be right aligned, okay? And that's the first option, create a class set. So if we look here, you see this one, that's actually the first option there in the menu, okay? And then we have another tab, and we have additionally 3 spaces. So what this is going to do is it's going to actually create a nice formatted menu that'll look really nice. Okay? So let's go ahead and continue to build the menu here real quick. And let's see here. Oops, what's going on? Yep, there we go. So again, menu plus equal. I'm just going to add each line to the menu here, and I'll type the first one out so you can see it, but then I'll just start copying it, right? So string.format, and then again, I want a new line and 3 pluses and a tab. And then now this is the second item, so 2, and notice that the 2 has a comma, a parentheses after it. So it's just all designed to look really nice and be nicely formatted, okay? And I think later on we can put this in its own method, but for right now, to get it up and running, we're just going to put it right here. Okay, so this is the second option, and if I look up here, that's going to be option 2, add grades. So we can say add grades. And this might not be exactly what I have in the other version. Let's just take a quick look and make sure. Again, I want to try and make the code work with the other videos. And I'm sort of recreating this video that somehow got lost. So add grades to a set. So it says create a class set. This is then add grades to a set. So add grades to a set. That kind of makes it look good too. And then we'll go ahead and just add this little border onto the end. So a tab, and again 3 plus signs, and that's just a kind of a fancy border, and then the semicolon. Okay. Okay, so I think we can just go ahead and copy the rest of the menu here, and so let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to grab it from the original code, and I want to make sure that I carefully get all the options. And so then I'll go ahead and paste that right in here. And so now you can see we have our 6 options, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And then create a class set, add grades to a set, display a class report, delete a grade, delete a student, quit the program. Okay? So we've defined the menu, and now we want to go ahead and build the main loop for the program. Okay, so the basic loop is just going to show the menu, and oops, sorry, that's up here at the top. So menu choice equals get ranged integer, console, menu, low, high. So that's actually calling our get ranged integer, and notice it's passing the menu in. So remember that get ranged integer will take the low and the high and force the user to enter a valid choice within range. So we're going to take advantage of that. So the whole program is really just a do while loop, and then once we get a choice, we have a switch block here that runs each method, so that we're going to write a method for each of these choices. Okay? All right, so let's go ahead and start to build this. We're going to start with the do while loop here. So do, and then we'll come down here, while, and then it should be not finished. And again, finished is set to be false, so not false is true. So this is going to set it up, and then we're going to say oops, sorry, here we go. So we're going to get this menu choice here that we use. So notice this line is just going to call this get ranged integer. So So I'll pop back in here. So the first thing we do is display. I'll put some comments in here, that'll work better. So display the menu and get the user's choice. Okay. I haven't had enough coffee yet this morning. Okay, let's paste that in. So menu choice equals get ranged int console. And let's see, do we open the console? Yep, that's already set up. So the console is going to read from system in. So we're good to go. And then now we need to create a selector on the menu choices. And so we're going to use a switch statement. So this gets the user's choice as an integer. It's going to be from 1 to 6. And then we're going to have a switch statement that actually runs the choices. And so we'll implement that right here at the beginning. Okay, so let's put the switch in. So switch menu choice. And then we need a block for that. And then the first case is, let's see, I always get this wrong. I think it's case name and then colon. Let's take a quick peek. Yep. Okay, and see, I'm going to use these symbolics here. So just to save time, I can just copy them in here real quickly. And then, so first one is going to be, oops, sorry about that. Create and a colon. And then the end of this case will have a break, like all cases do. And then the next case will be add grades. Again, and that'll have a break. And then, so we'll just continue and add all these cases in here. I think, again, I'll just go ahead and make this short by copying the code here. So I got the first two cases done. Here's the case display. And then case quit. And then we do have a default case at the end. Let me copy this in, and I'll talk about that here in a second. So here we go. After case 2, we want to copy. Let's go to the margin here and paste this in. Okay. Let me move this over. Okay, so now, right now, nothing's going on in the cases, so we have to create the methods that we want to use there. And I've already got those set up. So create class set and add grades to set are the methods I need here. Okay, so this is going to be create class set. And that's actually what we do in the next video is we develop that. Oh, it doesn't want me to. I'm working off of Google Drive, and every once in a while it seems like it sort of loses the connection, and you have to double tap. Okay, now watch this. I'm going to let NetBeans go ahead and create these methods for me. So I'll click on this, create method, create class set in gradebook, and I'll hit enter. Okay? And then I need to add the add grades to set. Let me check and make sure I got the method name right. Yeah, add grades to set. So what's going on is these methods don't exist yet. So I'm kind of writing the pseudocode out as I go with the actual names of the methods. And then I'll let NetBeans create stub functions for me. So I'll go ahead and create these methods. And then you can see that the other methods that I copied in are already there, but their definition isn't. So I'll make all of these, and then we'll go look at those in a second here. Okay? All right. Oops. Missed that one somehow. All right, and there's the last one. Okay. Okay, so we have a method that we're going to write for each one of these items. And let's just make the white space look a little bit better here. So we'll just put a space in there after each break, just so it's a little easier to read. Oops. I always like to clean my code up as I go. It's a pain in the ass to do it at the end, so nobody does. So if you don't get in the habit of writing the code as you go, you won't do it. So it's best to go ahead and document and write all the code as you go and the comments and everything. Okay, so I have all these dummy functions. Let's come down here to the bottom. Notice case quit, that doesn't require a function. We simply print thanks for using the gradebook app and we exit. If you wanted to, you could put in the are you sure style dialog where the user could say, oh no, I didn't mean to quit if they wanted to. Okay? We do have a default, but we won't expect that to happen. Because we're constraining the choice to be from 1 to 6, the only way for this to run is if it's not, and there's no way for that to happen. Okay, let's look at all the methods that NetBeans created for us. So here's the getRangeDent that we wrote. And then when you create a method with NetBeans, it's basically, it stubs out a error message. So this is going to throw an error. The reason for that is, NetBeans wants to let you know that you're running a method that hasn't been implemented. What we're going to do instead is we're going to add some statements here, okay? So if you look here in some of the code, I actually had that stubbed out here as comments. You see where I started to do that up here? But it really kind of makes more sense to put that in these methods. So this is going to be the method for creating the display set. So we come down here, create class set, and we're going to replace the default code that NetBeans inserted with this. So system out print line, display option chosen. Okay. So what's going to happen is in a moment I'm going to have a working menu. The program won't do anything of the functions, but the menu will actually be runnable, and I'll be able to test it. Okay. And again, the idea is to do this incremental work where we create it. So this is the add grades option. So I'll just change the message, add grades option chosen, and then I'll go on down and do the remaining ones. And then as we go through the rest of the videos in the sequence that develop this app, you'll see that basically what we're doing is developing each of these methods. And then we'll actually do some refactoring here because we'll start to see that some of the methods have, let's see. Oh, you know what? This is wrong, isn't it? This is the create option. Oh, I wonder how I did that. Okay, create option chosen. Add grades option chosen. Display option chosen. This is the delete grades option. So let's delete that. And put this in. Delete grades. Option chosen. So the interesting thing here is I'm about to actually run the code. Even though I don't have much of the application built yet, I have the main framework built. And of course, it's smart to go ahead and test it and make sure that I have it running nicely. Okay. So this is the delete student option. While we're talking about this, delete grade will delete a column, delete student will delete a row from the file. Okay, that's it. There's no function for quit because the code for quit is right there, exit 0. So watch now while I go ahead and run my program. And let's see here, let me just look over it. Yeah, so it looks good. So again, we're going to pass menu into our getRangeDent method. Here we go. And wait a second, I forgot I need to run the file. Let me go ahead and close. Oh, what's going on here? We got some red ink too. Let's see what's going on there. I don't see any problems there. Let me go ahead and close this. And I'll go back over here and run it over here. So I want to run the new one here. I wonder why I have those error messages. Let's see what we got. All right. Whoops. Unfortunately, the output window is under the tool I use to record the screen. So let me just minimize this. And okay, here we go. Window, output. So when I tried to grab that, I missed it and I ended up closing it here. So let me just pull this up. Okay, looks like we need to do a little bit of work on this. So create a class set, add grades to a set, display a class report. So the menu is looking fairly well. I don't like this hanging out here. Really, I want this to be down here. So that means that I have to add a new line into the menu code. So let's try this. So I'll select option 1. It says create option chosen, and then it returns and displays the menu again at the top of the loop. So it'll just continue, and let's go ahead here. I'm having some trouble with the grading, with the recording mechanism here. Let's just move this up a little bit further. Okay, so again, it's down here. We'll hit 6 to exit, hit enter, and notice that it tells you that it closed normally, so the program is running. Okay, so we need to fix this. Let's go in here. I need to put a new line right here. Okay, and in fact, we can make it a little bit better. So let's go ahead and do this. So put a new line here, and then we'll go to the end here and add this menu plus equal, enter your choice. You know what? I'm going to put the new line here just since I did that on the other lines. It's always good to be consistent in your coding. Okay, so we'll get rid of that one. And we'll add a space there and a semicolon. Okay, so now what it'll do is it'll put the input point right there below the menu instead of off to the side. All right, so let's run that. And I wonder if it's going to run the right one here. Let's see. Oops. Okay. I wonder if there's a way to full screen that from there. It's funny, all these years I've used NetBeans, I still don't know how to do things with it that I know it's capable of. Okay, so now you see how I've just modified that. Let's try option 5 this time. So it says delete student option chosen, and then it displays the menu again, and the insertion point is just off the screen below where I'm recording. But I'll go ahead and hit 6 for quit, and it'll pop up and tell me you chose. Thanks for using the gradebook. Okay, so we're doing pretty good. We got this together now. And let me pause the video for a second and see how much more I need to cover here to catch us up with the second video. Okay? Okay, so I checked, and to get us up to speed with the remaining videos, we need to go ahead and implement the first option, which is to create the class set. So you can see that that's going to be this create class set method. And if you think about the way I'm developing this, it makes a lot of sense. So we do that first, then we'll be able to use that to create class sets, and we can use them to test the other options here. Okay, so let's come on down here. Here's the create class set, and I'm going to go ahead and comment out this because now it's going to actually have code that executes. Okay, And then again, to keep things in sync, I'm going to go ahead and copy my variables from the previous program. Okay. All right. Let's go ahead and full screen this. And now we'll move on over here and just get this all tidied up. Okay, so I'm going to need to get the name for the class file, and then I'm going to have to get the name for each student, and then I'm going to have a control variable. So this is a do while loop where I expect this teacher will give me the name of at least one student, but generally more, and I'll keep running until he or she tells me that they're done. And then obviously I need a file object for this and a print writer to write to the file. And then we'll use the scanner to get input like we normally do. And then notice this array list. So the array list is going to have initially the student names. So we'll have array list contains strings. The names are strings. And notice how an individual name is a student name, but the collection of names is called names. By the way, here's that diamond notation that our book didn't cover very well. So when we came to Java version 6, and we're in version 8 now, they added the diamond notation. So sometimes you'll see that they'll repeat the word string here, but you don't have to do that. Okay? All right, so what we have to do is we have to prompt the teacher. Let's just go ahead and look at the code. And so enter the name of the class file, first grade math as an example, and then we'll go ahead and get that. So let's go ahead and put that in here. So again, this is going to be, we prompt the teacher to give us the class name. And the class name will have this sort of style. So first grade math, second grade lock picking, first grade assassination. We can make them funny, like we went to Hogwarts or some dark school of sorcery, something like that. So we can have fun with this. Okay, so that's going to get the class file name. And then we're going to go ahead and we basically have a try block, because remember we have a checked exception here when we do file IO. Okay, so let's just go ahead and copy this whole thing here, and then I'll show you how we're going to build this incrementally. I'm just trying to save some time here, but I don't want to do it so quickly that you don't get what we're doing. Okay, so we're going to copy that in, and then I'm going to go ahead and just get rid of all this code, because I'll, whoops, careful, Tom. And then we'll build it bit by bit. Okay, so there's the try block that I just copied. Let's go ahead and pull this baby over here. Okay. And then, so all of the file handling code is going to be in here. We'll catch the file not found exception, and then we'll catch the bigger IO exception. Pardon me. And let's have a little coffee here. That should help. Okay, so now we're going to loop and get the student names, and we'll put them into the array list. So if we go back here, we're basically going to have this loop right here. And let me go ahead and put that in. I'll paste that right in there. And then we'll read through it. Okay, so do while not done name input. Again, done name input is set to false. This is really my done variable, but I didn't want to have two with the same name, although they're not in the same scope, so that would be okay. By the way, here's the get yn confirm, and I'm going to have to paste that back into the code. So I didn't realize that I was using that. So let me do that right away to get rid of that error. So we'll come down here. There's the get, why, no, confirm. Remember, we developed this already in class. It's just our own, I should say, method to prompt the user for a yes, no, confirm. There's actually a little bit better way to do that with a, what is that, show dialog, show confirm dialog message, I think. It's a little pop-up widget. But whoops, I don't want that there. Yeah, I do want that there. Hang on. Let's put this up here. I'm just kind of anal about keeping stuff together. So this is my input method. I'll put the other one right before that in the code. Again, I'm just copying it in. You should have a copy of this that you developed yourself. And it has to be static, of course. All the helper methods are static. Okay? All right, so if we go back up here now, I'm sorry, down here. Let me show you the navigator, by the way. Let's open this up. So you see it's showing me the method, so I can navigate by clicking on that. This is called the navigator. So right now we're developing the add grades to set, so I'll just double click on that and, oops. Oh, I might create class set. That's the one. Sorry. Add grades to set is an existing set, so we have to create the class set first. Okay, sorry about that. So class file name, we get that. Here's the try block. Now we prompt the user. Notice it's print and not print line. Enter the student name first or last. Student name equals n.next line. Names.add student name. So basically we read the name that the teacher typed in and add it to the array list. And then we say, hey, do you have another student? And if the teacher says no, then we're done. And then when we come back up here, well, this loop will stop. And so then it'll, oh, we have to add the rest of the code yet. Okay. So basically what this code does is it just keeps collecting the names, all right? And then we have to write it to the file. So let's go back to the file. And let me find the create class set in this file. There we go. So here's the end of the loop we just looked at. Then here, notice we're doing the class file. And then we're writing it out with the new print writer. And so we can copy all of this code here. And this is the code that has to be in the try loop because it's doing the file handling. So honestly, there wasn't that much code in this simple application, this one method, right? So again, it goes right here. Let me get there to the, yeah, there we go. All right. I'll put in a little white space to make it readable. Okay, and then while we're here, let's comment it in. So loop and get the student names into an array list. And then now create the file and store the names in it. Now remember, we also got the name of the class name, right? And that's the class name is going to be the name of the file plus txt. By the way, that could be CSV, and then you could open it directly with Excel or an open source spreadsheet program like OpenOffice. Out is the new print writer, so we'll take the class file, which is really the class file name plus the extension, and create a new file. And then we'll go ahead and print the class file name, which is really the first line of the file. That's called the header. Remember I talked about that in the PowerPoint? Then we'll just go through and we'll write out each of the names in the array list and we'll close the file. Okay? So we should be able to test this code now. So let's go ahead and run this early version of the Gradebook app. And so now select option 1 and it says enter the name of the class file, first grade math. Let's go ahead and say second grade arson. And then now I'll enter the student's name. So Bilbo Baggins is my first student. Do you want another student? Yes, I do. And then Aragorn. I don't remember what his last name is, so we'll say Aragorn, son of Arathorn. Oops. Oops, looks like the Google Drive is acting up here. There we go. And let's just do 4 of them here. And you know, I'd like to learn how to do arsonry too. You see what happened there? I hit Y space and it didn't read it correctly, so ask me again. Okay, let's see. Tom Wolf. I don't know. I haven't been in first grade arson. I might not do well. Okay. And then, you know, oh yeah, who's the guy that likes to burn the world? Heath Joker. Hope you got that Batman reference. Okay, now I'm done. I hit no. And it pops back up. And we probably should have it say, hey, I just wrote the file and all that stuff. But it doesn't. So we could add that. I don't have that in the application. However, I want to show you something. We can come over here and, oh, I hope I was running the right one here. If I go to the files, and I'm running this in the new gradebook 1, there's the second grade arson file. And I can open it in NetBeans. There's the header, second grade arson, and then the 4 characters there. Okay? So you can see that I just created this, and it's right like we want. So now what will happen as you go through the videos and we develop the app, the next thing we'll do is we'll set up to add the grades. So this will basically add the name of the grade here. So it'll be a comma and then like quiz 1. And then it'll have the score for Bilbo, the score for Arathorn, the score for me, and the score for Heath the Joker. Okay? So I think we're in good shape now. It shows you how to do everything. Let me just run through the code once more because I didn't build it with you line by line like I usually do. So if you're cool, you can go ahead and say, hey, Tom, I'm fine. You don't have to watch the rest of the video. But if you want, I'm going to run through it one more time just to make sure that we're on the same page. So again, we created a menuing system. We defined the 6 choices for the menus as symbolic constants. We set those up as integers. We created another constant, the low and the high, so we could use our thing. And then we created an integer menu choice to actually get the choice. The menu is a string, and we just formatted it nicely so it would look good. And we actually fixed that so that enter your choice is here at the bottom and displays. And then we pass that in to the method that we already wrote called getRangeIn. So we say, hey, show the menu using the console, which we've opened already up there. It's a scanner. We're reading from the console for input. So we show the menu and we tell it to use the low and the high, which is the 1 to 6. And then we have a switch statement. Oh, I'm sorry. So the whole thing is in a repeating loop. So we create the menu as part of the top. The repeating loop starts here. It's a do while loop. And it's do while not finished, although actually we don't ever use that to exit the loop. What we do instead is when the user says they want to quit, we use the exit statement and we just jump out. So that just terminates the program. We could go ahead and set finished and then have a message or something like that, but it works fine, okay? So again, we set up a choice for each one of these. Initially, the choice just has a message that says, hey, you chose this. So we were able to test our menu. And then we went ahead and implemented the first choice, which is to create the game set. Let's go down and look at that. And we did grab our 2 input methods that we developed previously. So getRangeInt and getYNConfirm. Here's the create class section set that we went through. So we're going to get a class file name from the user. We're going to get student names one after another, put them into an array list, and then we're going to write that once the user says that we have all the names, we're going to write them to a file. Here's our file. Here's our print writer. We're using the scanner to read from the console. We go ahead and prompt the user for the class file name, and we read it. Now, there's no error checking here, so I could check to make sure that the user gave me a valid name, for instance, like the name has to have more than 0 characters in it, for instance. So we could enhance this, and that's the sort of thing that I do as a refinement. So right now I have it working. It doesn't handle the errors, but it's very easy to add that in. And I could write another input function to do that too, that would say, hey, get a string from user and it can't be blank. Here's the try block because we're going to do file operations. We want to catch the file not found, and then we want to catch the IO exception. That's pretty standard anytime we work with a file. Here's the do loop where we loop until we're done getting the names. So we prompt the user for the name and indicate that we want that in last space first format. Again, there's no error checking here. We're just reading this. So for instance, you could probably check to see if the user accidentally hit a single character. That's probably not a valid name. You could even do it very elaborately and test to make sure that you got the first and the last with an embedded space. Again, that's a refinement. So the idea is that we get the basic functionality going, and then we come back and we refactor and refine the code. We have this array list called names, which is set up to hold strings. And you can see here that as I get each student name, I say names.add, and that adds it to the array list. Then I prompt to see if there's another name, and as long as there is, I keep looping. So I don't know how many names I'm going to have. I had 4 here. I could have 30. I could have 100. Once we're ready to do the file, we take our class file name. We add a text extension. We go ahead and create a print writer. Remember, the print writer takes the string of the file name, not a file object. I think I actually have a file object up here that we never used. So maybe we did. Oh yeah, it's right there. So we set the class file as the file object, and then we pass the file. Oh, that's weird. Yeah, that's kind of weird. I thought the print writer didn't take a file. I thought it just took the string of the file name. I guess I'm wrong about that. Okay, then here, out print line, class file name, that's where we write the header, which is just the file name at this point. And then we have a loop that goes through our array list of names and writes each name out on a separate line, and then we close the file. Okay, so I hope you're good with this, and came in under an hour. It's a bit long, but I wanted to make sure that we got this caught up because somehow I had lost this. So this is a really significant program. It's got a lot of parts, but hopefully you can see that using the divide and conquer kind of agile approach, we can work on small segments that are very doable. So this is the last assignment for Computer Programming 1. It is more elaborate, but it's really just several pieces that you're putting together. All right, code on, dudes and dudettes.